Far from the busy roads and fine houses of Port Harcourt, where wealth and noise lived side by side, a small boy walked alone. His name was Daniel, and although he was only 6 years old, life had already taught him more than what many adults ever learned. Every morning, before the sun even stretched its first light across the sky, Daniel pushed open the weak wooden plank that served as the door to the unfinished building he called home. He stepped out slowly, careful not to wake his mother, who lay weak inside the small corner they had turned into a room. He would whisper to himself, "I must find food today. Mummy needs to eat." Inside that dark, dusty space, his mother, Amara, lay quietly on a thin mat. She was fighting kidney disease, and the battle had drained her strength until some days she could not even lift her head. But no matter how weak she felt, whenever Daniel prepared to step out, she tried to smile at him. "Daniel," she would whisper softly, her voice faint, "please be careful and come home early." And Daniel would always nod, holding her hand for a few seconds before leaving, and say, "Yes, Mummy, I will." Life had not always looked like this for Amara. Years before Daniel was born, she had been a cheerful young woman with dreams bigger than the city around her. She owned a small provision store, a shop she built right after graduating from university. She sold rice, beans, milk, bread, noodles, and small snacks. Customers loved her because she was always smiling, always offering kind words, and always making people feel welcome. That little shop didn't make her rich, but it paid her bills and gave her enough hope to keep dreaming. Back then, she was also in love. His name was Michael. They met in school, bonded quickly, and soon became inseparable. Michael was smart, gentle, and full of ambitions that could light up any room. He wanted to travel abroad for his master's degree. He had even secured a scholarship, but didn't have the funds to process his travel documents. Amara believed in him with all her heart, so much that she used almost all her savings to support him. "Michael," she would tell him, "don't worry. One day everything will work out." And he would reply with tender gratitude, "Thank you, Amara. I promise I will make you proud." When Michael finally got everything he needed, he traveled abroad. They talked every day. Amara laughed every time she heard his voice. She was certain their future was secure. But 2 weeks after he arrived abroad, everything changed. His calls stopped abruptly. She tried calling him repeatedly. She cried. She panicked. She prayed. She wondered what had happened. But no answer came. Then another 2 weeks passed, and her body began to change. She felt weak, nauseous, and dizzy. She went to the hospital, and the doctor told her she was pregnant. Amara sat there in shock. "Pregnant," she whispered. How? How will I take care of this child alone?" Fear shook her, but she made her choice. She would keep the pregnancy. Months later, she gave birth to a baby boy and named him Daniel. Daniel grew to be a bright and happy child. Amara worked tirelessly to provide for him. Though they didn't have much, they were deeply connected and content. She paid his kindergarten fees. She bought him small toys when she could afford them. Their life was simple but filled with love. Then another storm came. When Daniel turned 4, Amara started feeling extremely tired. She assumed it was stress from work, but the symptoms grew worse. Her legs felt heavy. She struggled to breathe sometimes. She found it hard to stand without shaking. One morning, as Daniel played with his toy car, Amara tried to get up to drink water, but her legs buckled. She almost fell, but Daniel caught her clothes with his tiny hands. "Mummy, what's wrong?" he asked, terrified. Amara forced a smile. "Nothing, my dear. Mummy is just tired." Deep down, she knew something was very wrong. She went to the hospital. After numerous tests, the doctor sat before her and said the words she feared the most. "Amara, you have kidney failure. You need dialysis twice a week. Eventually you will need a transplant, and the transplant must be done abroad." The world around her seemed to fall apart. How? How much will this cost? She asked. The doctor's silence was louder than any answer. It would cost everything she had and more. Amara fought. She sold her freezer. She sold her small furniture. She even sold her shop refrigerator. But the money still wasn't enough. Dialysis drained what little savings she had left. Within 2 years, everything she ever owned was gone. She couldn't pay rent anymore, so she was evicted. She couldn't pay Daniel's school fees, so he stopped school. They moved into an unfinished building, a place she hoped would at least shelter them from rain and sun. Now, with no income and a failing body, Amara depended on Daniel. And Daniel, only 6 years old, began walking the streets every day, hoping someone might give him small money or food. One hot morning, under the burning Port Harcourt sun, Daniel walked slowly with his tiny feet. His stomach empty. "Mummy must not go hungry today," he whispered. "I must find something." He approached people on the road, begging gently, shyly, "Auntie, please, small help." Some ignored him. Some frowned. Some waved him off without looking at him. Each rejection hurt him, but he kept moving, wiping his tears and whispering, "Mummy needs food." After a while, he found himself in front of a small roadside food stall. Smoke curled from a pot, and the rich smell of freshly cooked beans and stew filled the air. His stomach growled loudly. He didn't go inside. He simply sat on a wooden bench near the shop, quietly watching the world pass by. He wasn't begging this time. He was simply hoping. Inside that shop was a woman named Ruth, a woman whose kindness had not yet been burned away by life. She noticed Daniel immediately. He sat too quietly, too softly, and with emptiness in his eyes that no child his age should have. She walked toward him slowly and asked, "My son, why are you sitting here like this?" Daniel did not look up. He only whispered, "I'm hungry, Ma." Ruth felt something tug deeply within her. She didn't ask too many questions. She simply brought a plate of hot food and placed it in front of him. "Eat," she said gently. Daniel looked at the food as if he wasn't sure it was truly for him. "Ma, I don't have money." Ruth smiled softly. "Eat, my son." That moment marked the beginning of a bond neither of them fully understood. From that day on, Daniel returned often. Whenever Ruth saw him, she would dish out food quietly and hand it to him with a smile. He never asked. She never questioned. She only knew he needed help, and she gave it freely. Weeks passed, then months. Daniel became like a quiet shadow near her shop. Sometimes he would sit on the bench. Sometimes he would just appear, waiting patiently. And every time, Ruth fed him. One morning, something unusual happened. Daniel came later than usual, and he looked more frightened than Ruth had ever seen him. She rushed to him. "My son, what is it?" "My mummy," he whispered, trembling. "She is very sick. She can't move." Ruth didn't think twice. She closed her pot, grabbed her keys, and followed Daniel to the unfinished building. When she saw Amara lying weakly on the ground, tears filled her eyes. She knelt beside her. "Madam, what happened?" Amara tried to speak, but her voice failed. Ruth placed a hand on her forehead and felt the burning heat. She immediately rushed to get help. A neighbor helped carry Amara to a small clinic nearby. Ruth sat beside Daniel the whole time, holding his hand. At the clinic, she overheard the doctors mention kidney failure and dialysis. It became clear how serious Amara's condition was, and how much Daniel had been struggling alone. From that day, Ruth became more than a food seller. She became the guardian angel Daniel didn't know he had. And then came the morning that changed everything forever. It was a quiet day at Ruth's shop. She had just finished arranging her pots when she noticed several people staring toward the main road. For large black SUVs were driving slowly and stopped directly in front of her food stall. People murmured, wondering what wealthy person would come to such a simple place. The doors opened and bodyguards stepped out first. Then a tall, handsome man wearing a neatly tailored suit emerged from one of the cars. He looked around with eyes full of urgency, as if searching for someone. He walked toward Ruth. "Good morning, Ma," he said politely. "Please, I'm looking for a small boy. His name is Daniel. Someone told me he eats here sometimes." Ruth froze. How did a wealthy man know Daniel? She pointed toward the small bench where Daniel was sitting that morning, eating quietly. When the man saw Daniel, he stopped. His breath caught. He stared as though the world around him had vanished. Slowly, he walked toward the child and knelt down before him. "My God," he whispered. He looks exactly like me when I was his age." Daniel stared back, quietly. He didn't understand what was happening. "My name is Michael," the man said softly. I think I might be your father." The world felt still. Ruth gasped. Daniel blinked, confused. "My father," he whispered. Just then, Ruth spoke gently. She told Michael everything. How Daniel always came hungry, how his mother lived in an unfinished building, how she was very sick, how Daniel struggled to survive. With each word, Michael's face changed pain. Regret, shock, fear, emotion deepened in his eyes. "I never abandoned her," he said, his voice cracking. "I lost my phone the second week after I arrived abroad. I tried finding her number again, through people we knew, but she had moved houses and changed lines. I searched for her. I asked mutual friends. I didn't know she had a child. I didn't know she was suffering." His voice broke completely. "Please, where is his mother?" Within minutes, they all rushed to the clinic. When Michael entered the room and saw Amara lying there, pale and thin, he staggered back, tears burning his eyes. He went to her side and knelt. "Amara," he whispered. "It's me. It's Michael." Her eyes opened slightly. She blinked, unsure if she was dreaming. "Michael," she whispered weakly. "I didn't leave you," he cried. "I searched everywhere. I never knew. I never stopped loving you." Tears rolled down Amara's cheeks. It was as if years of pain melted into one moment of relief. Michael acted immediately. He arranged for her to be moved to a better hospital. He paid for all her medical bills. Within days, arrangements were made for her to travel abroad for a kidney transplant. And one beautiful morning, they left Nigeria together, Michael, Amara, and Daniel. Ruth came to the airport to see them off. Daniel hugged her tightly. "Auntie Ruth," he whispered. "Thank you for feeding me when nobody cared." Ruth cried softly as she held him. "Go and be great, my son." Months later, after successful treatment abroad, Amara regained her strength. Her face glowed again. Her laughter returned. Michael stood by her every day, making up for the years they had lost. And Daniel, healthy and happy, started school again. Michael later married Amara in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by friends and family. They built a life full of joy and second chances. And they did not forget the woman who showed unconditional kindness. Michael opened a large modern restaurant for Ruth, far bigger and better than her roadside stall. He funded her education, and she finally went to school the way she had always dreamed. Her business grew. She employed people. She became successful, respected, and loved by her community. Ruth often visited Amara and Daniel abroad, and they visited her too. They became family, bound not by blood but by love and kindness. And so they all lived happily ever after. Daniel grew into a smart, confident young man. Amara regained the life she thought she had lost. Michael finally fulfilled his promise to make her proud. And Ruth rose far beyond what she ever imagined, proving that a single act of kindness can change many lives forever. In the end, what started with a small plate of food became a story of healing, forgiveness, reunion, and divine destiny, where every broken piece found its place again.